Most cheap cars people chase are overrated, and that is where buyers get burned. The real bargains are the cars everybody scrolls past, the ones with boring looks, dead badges, or rental history that kills demand faster than bad engineering. That is the whole point of this video. We are not shopping for status. We are shopping for years, trims, and powertrains that keep running when flashier stuff starts draining wallets. Number 8 is the wagon nobody defends. And number 1 is the twist that makes this video work, because it gives you Toyota-style survival with dead brand pricing. Number 8. Chevrolet HHR, the cartoon wagon that looks like a rental prop and gets treated like trouble before anybody turns the key. That is why it really matters. The sweet spot is 2009 through 2011 in LS or 1 LT trim with the naturally aspirated 2.2-liter Ecotec, and either the 5-speed manual or the 4-speed automatic. That setup is not exciting, and that is the advantage. Buyers skip this thing for 3 real reasons. First, the styling is a love-it or hate-it mess and most people hate it. Second, the GM badge mixed with wagon shape makes shoppers assume electrical pain and interior cheapness. Third, the model is dead, so people act like parts vanished, even though service parts are easy to find. The reason it lasts is simply practical. The engine is straightforward, the gearbox choices are old school, and this car was never trying to be fancy. You are buying a box with seats, not a rolling computer. In the real world, that still matters. When a car is this simple, the average independent shop can keep it alive without dealer drama. Used pricing is where the value gets real. Rougher drivers can land in the high $2,000 range, while cleaner 2010 LS examples with miles can show up around $4,000, and some nicer low-mile ones stretch higher, which is why I would call the real buying lane roughly $3,000 to $5,500 if you stay patient. If this kind of straight talk helps you buy smarter, subscribe now. We are building a channel for people who want honest advice before they hand over hard-earned money. Now be honest about the weak spots because this car is not perfect. You need proof that the ignition switch recall was handled. You also want proof that the electric power steering recall work was done on affected cars. Because sudden loss of assist is not a small annoyance, it is a safety problem. On the test drive, I want the steering to feel the same cold and warm, not heavy, not twitchy, and not flashing warning lights at you. Then hit a rough road and listen for front-end clunks, because worn links, struts, and tired bushings can make a decent HHR feel wrecked. Check recall history. Check steering feel. Check front suspension noise over broken pavement. One quick maintenance tip that extends life, especially on the automatic, is to drain and fill long before it feels sick. Waiting for a harsh shift is how cheap cars become expensive ones. If you want calm, honest car advice before a dealer turns your budget into regret, subscribe. We keep the truth simple and the mistakes cheap. Number 7. Mercury Grand Marquis. The highway couch people joke about until it quietly eats 50,000 miles and asks for more. This car is ignored for reasons that have almost nothing to do with long-term. It looks old, it drives old, and younger buyers do not want a 6 passenger it feels like it belongs outside a bingo hall. That is why values stay soft. The best target is 2006 through 2008 in GS trim, or a clean LS if the rear suspension checks out. Every one of them gets the 4.6-liter V8 and the 4-speed automatic sending power to the rear wheels, and that combo is part of the story. This platform lived forever for a reason. The engine is proven, the transmission is known, the layout is simple, and there is room under the hood to work without bleeding on brackets. That matters when you are buying an older American sedan, because easy service is part of real reliability. The market discounts it because it feels like an old taxi, because it will never impress your neighbor, and because gas mileage is decent, not magical. But for buyers who want relaxed highway miles, this is one of those cars that makes sense the second you stop caring about image. Used prices make the case. You can find rough or high mileage in the low 3,000s. Clean GS cars often sit in the $4,000 to $6,000 range, and cleaner lower mileage LS cars can stretch beyond that, which is why $4,000 to $6,500 is still a fair target if you stay picky. Now the honest part. You need to check the recall history for the front wheel bearing and hub issue on affected cars, and you also want to verify the steering column shaft recall work, especially if the car lived in states where corrosion turns into real danger. If the rear of an LS sits low after the car has been parked, assume the air suspension needs attention and price it that way. My buying checklist is simple. Start it cold and listen for a misfire or coolant smell. Drive it straight and feel for loose steering or wandering. Let it sit and check whether the rear ride height stays level. One maintenance move matters more than people think on these big sedans. Change the coolant on time and keep an eye on the intake area for seepage before a small leak turns into an expensive overheating story. That is how you buy the comfy joke car and end up with the last laugh. Number 6. Mazda 2. The tiny hatch that got ignored while buyers chased bigger, heavier, slower junk with worse upkeep and flashier ads. That is why this thing makes so much sense. The right target is 2011 through 2014 in sport or touring trim with the 1.5-liter 4-cylinder and either the 5-speed manual or the 4-speed automatic. This car is undervalued for 3 simple reasons. First, it looks basic. Second, the power numbers look weak on paper. Third, it never got the hype of a Fit or even a Yaris, so people assume it was the lesser choice. In the real world, that thinking is backward. This car lasts because it is light, simple, and low drama. There is not much here to fail. The engine does not work hard, the car weighs about 2,300 pounds, and the whole thing feels like a small machine built before every cheap car became bloated and loaded with gadgets. Even the automatic is old school. And in a cheap car, old school usually means better. Another reason it keeps going is that owners who bought these new often use them as plain commuters, not as speed toys, which helps when you are shopping for older economy cars. The best part is how it drives. It feels quicker than the numbers suggest because the chassis is sharp and the size stays tight. But let me be honest, because this is not some hidden jewel. Some Mazda 2 cars develop steering clunks or a steering rack feel that gets loose over rough pavement. So the test drive matters a lot. You do not buy this one after a 2-minute loop around the block. You turn the wheel at parking lot speed, you hit rough pavement, and you listen for any clunking that tells you the front end wants money. First, listen for clunks while turning. Second, feel for looseness or dead play in the steering. Third, inspect tire wear, because neglected alignment will show up at the tread before a seller admits anything. Price is one of the best parts of the story. Rough cars can dip lower, but the buying lane for clean examples is usually about $4,500 to $6,500, and that still undercuts flashier small cars with more risk. The maintenance tip is simple. If you buy the automatic, service the transmission fluid on a steady schedule, and never ignore steering noise just because the car was cheap. That is how a cheap commuter stays a reliable winner for years. Number 5. Buick LeSabre. This car is cheap because people see retired grandpa car, not because the drivetrain is frail. That is the whole trick. The best target is 2000 through 2005 in custom or limited trim, with the 3.8-liter V6 and the 4-speed automatic. This is one of those cars the market discounts for image, not for actual survival. That matters more today. The styling is soft, the buyer crowd is older, and nobody is posting glamour shots of a LeSabre online, so demand stays low and values stay gentle. That is good news for anybody who wants comfort without drama. The reason it lasts is not mysterious. The 3800 V6 built a long reputation for taking abuse, handling miles, and doing its job without constant attention. It is also an easy car to live with. The seats are plush, the ride is soft, and the visibility is clean, which matters more in a daily driver than fake sportiness ever will. Another part of the value story is that many of these were owned by older drivers who did not thrash them, so you can still find examples with a calm history and a stack of service receipts. Used prices are where this starts looking almost unfair. Rough cars can show up below $2,500, and nicer ones can touch $5,000. So the sweet spot stays around $2,500 to $5,000 if you stay picky. Now the honest part. The weak spot on these cars is cooling system neglect, especially upper or lower intake manifold coolant leaks. If the cooling system has been ignored, this smooth old Buick can become a painful headache fast. That is why your buying checklist needs to stay simple and serious. First, inspect the coolant level and smell. A sweet smell or low coolant should put you on alert right away. Second, look around the intake area for seepage, stains, or signs of a past leak. Third, drive it until fully warm and make sure the transmission shifts clean and smooth, because a lazy test drive hides too much. I also want to see how the temperature behaves while the car idles, because a stable gauge tells you more than shiny paint ever will. The life-extending tip on a LeSabre is basic. Keep fresh coolant in it and stay vigilant about intake gasket trouble before it grows teeth. Do that, and this old Buick gives you silent miles, big comfort, and the kind of low-stress ownership newer cheap cars often fail to deliver. If you want smarter, calmer. Buying advice in a community that respects value over badges. Subscribe now. We chase reliable bargains, not market hype. Number 4. Nissan Versa. One of the last truly honest commuters left, but only if you dodge the wrong transmission and shop with your eyes open. The sweet spot is the 2009 through 2011 Versa 1.8 S sedan or hatch, with the 1.8-liter four-cylinder and either the 4-speed automatic or the 6-speed manual. That part matters, because I do not want this built around the CVT story at all. This car is cheap for reasons buyers understand in 5 seconds. It feels cheap, it looks cheap, and the cabin has that bare economy car mood that makes shoppers think they are settling. Then they hear old Versa transmission horror stories and lump every single version into the same broken pile. That is where smart buyers can still win. The right Versa lasts because the basic 1.8 engine is stable, the traditional automatic is easier to defend, and the manual is even better if the clutch feel is clean. There is very little glamour here, but that is the point. A small car that does basic work without pretending to be premium is often safer than a cheap used car that was loaded with complex features when new. Another reason this one stays useful is space. For a tiny footprint, it carries adults well, the trunk is decent, and it does not punish you on fuel. In the real market, cleaner examples usually land around $2,800 to $5,500, which is still low enough to make newer, overcomplicated junk look silly. Now the honest part. The weak spots are old car weak spots, but they matter. Check for exhaust flange rust, especially in salt states where rusty hardware turns a small leak into an annoying racket. Watch the front springs, struts, and ride height, because a tired Versa can sit wrong and feel sloppy long before the seller admits it. Also, make sure the air conditioning gets truly cold on a real drive, not just during a quick idle test in the driveway. My buying checklist is simple. Listen for an exhaust leak at cold start. Inspect front spring condition and ride height. Then drive it long enough to confirm the AC stays cold and stable. One maintenance move matters more than people think. Stay ahead of rust around the exhaust and underbody before it spreads. Because a cheap commuter only stays cheap when small metal problems do not become painful repair math. Skip shiny stereo nonsense and pay for condition first, because rust and suspension neglect will empty your wallet faster. Number 3. Scion XB. The toaster-shaped box that serious cheap car buyers quietly respect because it keeps doing useful work long after trendier cars have worn out their welcome. The best target is the 2004 through 2006 base XB with the 1.5-liter four-cylinder and either the 5-speed manual or the 4-speed automatic. This thing is underfull, most predictably. The shape scares people, the badge is dead, and most casual shoppers assume weird-looking means fragile. That thinking misses the whole point. Underneath the funny body is a very Toyota kind of formula. Lightweight, low-stress mechanicals, low running costs, and a cabin that makes far better use of space than the outside price suggests. That is why these earn quite a respect from people who actually buy with their own money. They are roomy, easy to see out of, easy to park, and surprisingly handy when you need to haul boxes, tools, or weekend junk without stepping into crossover prices. It also helps that fuel economy stays solid, usually in the high 20s combined, and sometimes a little better on the highway if the car is sorted. Good examples usually show up around $3,500 to $6,000, which is fair when you consider how many of these have already crossed huge mileage without turning into drama. But let's stay honest, because these are old now, and the little stuff matters. Rear hatch handles can fail, power lock issues show up, and high-mile cars can develop wheel-bearing noise or the usual basic suspension wear that makes a once tight little box feel worn out. That means you do not just admire the room and call it a day. You work on the body hardware and listen on the road. My buying checklist is easy. Open and close the rear hatch several times and make sure the handle feels normal. Test every lock and window so you are not buying a future electrical nuisance. Then take it up to speed and listen for any hum or growl from the wheel bearings, because that low drone tells the truth fast. My quick maintenance tip is boring, and that is exactly why it works. Keep fresh oil in it, and do not ignore small body hardware problems just because the car still runs great. Owners let those little issues pile up, and that is how a practical box turns into an irritating project instead of a reliable bargain. Buy the cleanest one with service history, because a calm ownership story usually matters more than color, wheels, or any cosmetic distraction. Number 2. Toyota Yaris. And this little car is not unloved because it is bad. It is unloved because it is painfully honest. The best target is the 2007 through 2011 sedan or hatch, preferably base or S trim, with the 1.5-liter four-cylinder, the 4-speed automatic, or the 5-speed manual. That formula is about as simple as modern used cars get, and that is exactly why it keeps showing up on these lists. Buyers skip it for 3 boring reasons. It is slow. It is plain. It gives you absolutely zero status when you pull into a driveway next to something with a bigger grille and fake sport wheels. That is why prices stay lower than they should. Clean examples usually live around $4,000 to $6,000, depending on miles, body style, and whether the seller has real records, and that still puts the Yaris in a sweet spot for anyone who wants reliable transportation without monthly payment nonsense. What makes it last is not magic. It is Toyota simplicity, low weight, a basic engine, and a transmission setup that stayed old school when other small cars were already getting too clever for their own good. A Yaris weighs only a little over 2,300 pounds in many trims, and that matters. Less weight means less strain on brakes, tires, and suspension parts over long miles. Another reason these survive is that owners usually bought them for commuting, not for showing off, so a well-kept one often has a calm life story. That said, do not get lazier just because the badge says Toyota. Honest weak points still matter. Watch for water pump seepage, because dried coolant crust around the pump area tells you the cooling system wants attention. Listen at a cold start for belt squeal, because loose or tired belts will warn you long before they leave you stranded. On rough road cars, normal front suspension wear can creep in, so you want to inspect tire wear and look for strut neglect before you hand over your cash. Check for coolant residue around the pump. Listen carefully to a true cold start. Inspect the tires for bad alignment patterns and uneven wear. One quick maintenance move extends life more than people think. Keep the belts tight and the cooling parts fresh before they start talking back. Do that, and this tiny Toyota stays cheap, stable, and stubbornly reliable, even when trendier subcompacts start feeling tired. If you care about value, reliability, and smart buying more than badges, subscribe now. We built this channel for calm buyers, not market hype. Number 1. Pontiac Vibe. And this is the best dirty little secret in the whole video because it gives you Toyota-style survival with dead brand pricing. The best target is the 2005 through 2008 base Vibe with the 1.8-liter four-cylinder and either the 4-speed automatic or the 5-speed manual. Keep this simple. Do not turn it into a GT hunt, and do not drift into the later 2.4 story, because the whole advantage here is buying the boring one that nobody brags about. The Vibe is undervalued for 3 solid reasons. Pontiac is dead, so buyers assume parts support is shaky. People trust the Matrix badge more, even when the hardware is extremely close. And the wagon shape never had cool guy demand, so these sit while crossovers with more complexity get all the attention. That is exactly why smart buyers still like them. What makes the Vibe last is the running gear, the plain 1.8 setup, the practical body, and the fact that common parts are still easy to source. You get room for cargo, fold-down flexibility, and genuinely useful packaging without paying SUV money or feeding a thirsty V6 every week. The base front-wheel drive cars also stay light enough to feel simple on the road, and when a cheap used car feels simple, that usually means fewer ugly surprises later. Real prices still make the case. Rough or high-mile examples can dip below $3,000 in some markets, while cleaner drivers often land in the $3,000 to $5,500 lane, especially if the seller has records and the body is straight. Now the honest part, these are old, and old cars always have patterns. Watch for wheel-bearing noise, because a low highway hum can turn into a bigger bill if you ignore it. Check front suspension wear, because clunks over rough pavement are your first clue that the easy bargain may need front-end work. And pay attention to old car electrical annoyances, because weak switches, sticky locks, or random warning lights can turn a practical hatch into a daily irritation. Do a real highway drive and listen for bearing hum. Hit rough pavement and listen for front-end clunks. Then check every power accessory, every dashboard light, and every basic function before you call it clean. My maintenance tip is about staying boring. Fresh fluids, correct alignment, and quick action on wheel-bearing noise will keep this thing running a very long time. That is why it takes the top spot. Buyers shop with ego, the market prices badges, but the Vibe rewards people who buy with repair bills in mind. Click the next video now, because we are breaking down the best years to chase, the years to avoid, and the inspection mistakes that kill cheap car deals fast.